I was born lucky. A psychic told my adoptive parents my fate was tied to great wealth. So, at 3, I was taken from the orphanage and delivered to the Hendry family. Back then, the Hendries were just entering high society. They treated me as their lucky charm, spoiling me endlessly. Over the next 15 years, their fortune soared, making them one of New York's most powerful families. Raised as their charm, I grew fearless and sharp, tongued with a famously bad attitude. Then my biological parents, the Vances, found me. They were moderately wealthy compared to the Hendries, but hey, free inheritance. I reluctantly agreed to visit. When I arrived, no one greeted me. The whole family was crowded around a crying girl, the one who had taken my place. "Stella, don't cry," her mother soothed. "No one can replace you. You'll always be our most precious daughter." I rolled my eyes. God, this is annoying. That whining is worse than nails on a chalkboard. My words dropped into sudden silence. Every head whipped toward me in disbelief. My supposed older brother Ethan stormed over, dabbing a finger at my face. "Who do you think you are talking to Stella like that?" he snarled. "Did your dirt poor family not teach you any respect?" Dirt poor. The Henrys could buy and sell the Vances' entire fortune in the time it took to make a phone call. But I couldn't be bothered to explain that. I gave a cold, dismissive laugh. "No respect? I wonder why that is," I said, voice tripping with sarcasm. "Maybe it's because she stole the family that was supposed to teach me." I pointed at Stella. "And the little thief has the audacity to stand there crying. What is this? The classic villain plays the victim routine." Ethan's bravado faltered. He was clearly out of his league. His face turned beet red as he stammered. You. I cut him off, bored. "Spit it out. If you have a stutter, go see a doctor. If you're just stupid, try reading a book. Either way, stop wasting my time." Defeated, Ethan stood there, seething and breathless. Right on. Cue. Stella drifted closer, her face a perfect mask of wounded innocence. "I'm so sorry, sister," she whispered, eyes glistening. "It's all my fault. I'm the one who stole your life. You have every right to be angry. Please don't blame Mom, Dad, or Ethan. Take it all out on me." Ah, the classic damsel in distress act, zero originality. I had no intention of playing along. "Look, I'm tired. Just have someone show me to my room. You can continue your melodrama without me." Mr. Vance huffed, but still motioned for the butler to escort me. The butler led the way, but before I could speak, Stella started again. "Sister, you should take my room," she declared, pushing her bedroom door open with a grand gesture. "It should have been yours all along." Ethan lunged forward, blocking the entrance. "Stella, don't do this to yourself," he pleaded. "She's a charity case from the sticks. A storage closet would be too good for her. She has no right to your room?" Mrs. Vance, to her credit, had a sliver of conscience left. She shot Ethan a glare before turning to me. "Celine, you can choose any of the other rooms in the house," she said gently. "But Stella is used to this one. Please don't fight her for it." "All right." I was speechless. Had I even said I wanted Stella's room? Was it really that special? I glanced inside past Ethan's shoulder. 2 words came to mind. That's it. My dog Lucas's room back at the Hendry estate was bigger. I rolled my eyes and walked away, pointing to a much larger room down the hall. "I'll take this one." Ethan stared at me. "Are you insane? That's Mom and Dad's room." I strolled in anyway and smiled at the couple. Mother just said I could pick any room as long as it wasn't Stella's. "You're not going back on your word, are you?" Mrs. Vance hesitated, but finally nodded. "Fine." "Great. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'd like to rest. Don't let the door hit you on the way out." I slammed the door shut, leaving the dumbfound family in the hall. Finally, peace. I snapped a photo of the room and sent it to Ben Prescott. My life is so hard. I'm living in a place worse than Lucas's doghouse. Ben was my fiancé. In New York's elite circles, few families matched the Hendrys. The Prescotts were one of them. "Come home, baby," Ben texted back. "The Vance's entire net worth wouldn't cover your handbag budget. If you're short on cash, I'll have my assistant transfer you more company shares." I smiled and replied, "I want your shares and the Vance family fortune too." The second I hit send, my door burst open. It was Stella. The meek facade was gone, replaced by smug superiority. She tossed an envelope at me. "This is for the Prescott's birthday gala," she sneered. Mom and Dad said, "I have to bring you." I picked it up, an invitation to Nathan Prescott's birthday. Nathan was Ben's younger brother, the reckless playboy opposite of Ben's calm power. Seeing my silence, Stella smirked. The Prescotts are top-tier New York society. Not just anyone can get close to them. But I'm Nathan's girlfriend, so of course I got an invitation. Girlfriend? I'd never heard that one. Nathan had countless flings, but never a girlfriend. Then she snatched the invitation from my hand and ripped it into pieces, a malicious smile on her lips. Paper confetti fluttered to the floor as she threw herself down and wailed. Sister, I know you're angry, but you can't just rip up my invitation. The girl deserved an Oscar. Her first step should be deleting TikTok and quitting those trashy, long-lost heiress novels. Her cries brought the others running. Mom, Dad, Ethan, don't blame her, she sobbed. It was my fault. She didn't mean to push me. She just wanted to go to the Prescott Gala alone, so she destroyed my invitation. Ethan immediately turned on me. You're shameless. We wouldn't even have an invitation if it weren't for Stella. She's Nathan Prescott's girlfriend. You wanted to go alone so you could steal him, didn't you? If I tried to seduce Nathan, Ben would probably break all 3 of his legs. Seeing I wasn't saying anything myself, Mr. Vance's tone turned cold. Your mother and I wanted to give you a chance to see how the other half lives. And this is how you repay us? Destroying a Prescott invitation and attacking your sister, Butler. Time for some family discipline. The bubbler entered holding a long whip. As he swung, I caught it midair, yanked it from his grasp, and kicked his knee. He dropped to the floor with a cry. Kneeling beside him, I pointed the whip toward a small camera on the bookshelf. You probably didn't notice, but I installed a little security camera when I first arrived. Why don't we all watch and see who really tore up the invitation? As the footage played, Stella's face drained of color. The family's anger shifted to confusion and embarrassment. Realizing she was caught, Stella dropped to her knees, clutching my legs. I'm so sorry, sister. I was just so scared of losing Mom, Dad, and Ethan. Please hit me. Punish me. Tears streamed down her face, and I could see their resolve softening. I wasn't Vance. I picked up a glass from the nightstand and smashed it over her head. Blood trickled down her forehead. You're the one who asked me to hit you, I said calmly. They snapped out of their trance. Ethan scooped her up and ran. We need to get her to a hospital, Mr. Vance glared. How could you be so violent? What if you scarred her face? How will she attend the Prescott Gala now? Ah, there it was. He wasn't worried about her, just the connection. What's wrong? I asked lightly, afraid your plan to sell your daughter to a rich family will fail if she has a scar. His face turned crimson. You will stay here and reflect on what you've done. You are forbidden from attending the Prescott Gala. I laughed as they stormed out. Empty threats. I'd received my own invitation ages ago. Ben had delivered it himself. Celine, he'd said, I want to announce our wedding date that night. Ben, it's your brother's birthday. You're going to announce our wedding then? Isn't that stealing his thunder? It would be an honor for him, Ben replied. Seriously, I want the world to know you're my wife. On the night of the gala, the Vances left early. I returned to the Hendry estate, changed into the custom gown and jewels Ben had prepared, and went to the party. Inside, I spotted Stella surrounded by admirers. Oh, Stella, that sapphire necklace is gorgeous. Was it a gift from Nathan? She glowed under their praise. Then someone noticed me. Stella, look, her necklace is exactly the same as yours. But that piece is one of a kind. Stella's eyes narrowed as she marched toward me. How did you sneak in here without an invitation? And why are you wearing a cheap knockoff? Leave before you embarrass us further. I looked at her lazily. Who said mine is the knockoff? She laughed. Mine was a gift from Nathan. It's obviously real. Yours must be fake. I smirked. Yours is from Nathan. Mine's from Ben. You tell me which one is real. Before she could reply, the crowd gasped. Ben Prescott, no way. The head of the Prescott family. Stella glared. You're nothing but a low-class copycat. Get out before you make an even bigger fool of yourself. She grabbed my necklace and yanked. It snapped and fell to the floor. She stomped on it and hissed. Don't think I don't know what you're doing. You tried to ruin my face and now you're wearing the same necklace to seduce my boyfriend. I won't let you in. Her shriek echoed through the ballroom. I sighed and slapped her twice. You're too loud, I muttered. Stella fell, eyes wide with disbelief and tears forming. Just as she was about to scream again, a new voice cut through the noise. What's going on here? It was Nathan Prescott. Stella clung to his arm, trembling. Nathan, she whimpered. She said the necklace you gave me is a fake, and she hit me. Who would dare? Nathan began, turning toward me. I I smiled, eyes glinting. The moment our gazes met, the arrogance drained from his face. His voice cracked in panic. "Sis, sister-in-law, what are you doing here?" Nathan's voice cracked, rising in a panic that cut through the music and the gossip in a single stroke. The ballroom went still like a glass of water that had just been bumped and was trying not to spill. Heads turned from me to Stella and back again. I could see the calculations ticking behind a dozen polite smiles. A few women who had been praising Stella's necklace a moment earlier quietly stepped away from her side. Security moved in out of habit when voices rose, but a raised hand from a silver-haired event manager kept them at bay. Nathan was staring at me now, color draining, the Playboy lacquer cracking to show the boy underneath who had been warned his whole life not to anger his brother. He looked exactly like a man who had wandered into his own trap. I tipped my chin toward the crushed necklace at my feet. "You might want to call a jeweler before your girlfriend accuses the wrong person of fraud. Mine came from Ben. I am sure he would enjoy the lecture." Stella clung to Nathan harder, trembling in a way that would have fooled anyone who had not watched her fabricate tears on command. "Nathan," she whispered, "she is lying. She snapped my necklace, then hit me. The one you gave me is real. You said it was one of a kind." He swallowed. "I never said one of a kind. I said limited, and I said I would bring the invoice later." A familiar shadow fell across the circle. The crowd parted without being asked. Ben did not raise his voice. He did not need to. "Where is the damage?" I lifted my foot to show the glittering wreckage. Stella's heel had done the job well. A hush spread wider as two men in black suits appeared at Ben's shoulder with a velvet tray and a compact loop. Ben crouched, sifted the shards with the tip of a gloved finger, and found a clasp. He held it to the light like a judge reading a verdict. "Engraving intact," he said. He glanced at me. "This is ours. The piece was cut to your collarbone measurement?" He looked at Stella's chest where an identical sapphire rested against her skin. The faceting pattern was technically similar. The work was not. Then straightened. "Who supplied yours? Miss Vance?" Stella's throat worked. "Nathan gave it to me." Ben's gaze shifted to his brother. Nathan flinched. "Private jeweler, same workshop the family uses for overflow." He said the seller had released a companion run. There was a small, meaningful pause, the kind that happens when you realize you paid couture prices for something that had no business sitting in couture glass. Ben glanced at the event manager. "Bring Mr. Harrow from the vault showcase." A man in a white glove and tailcoat appeared with a discreet case, opened it, and set a handheld reader beside the loop. He did not look at faces, only at stones, which is the kind of man who keeps billion-dollar families from embarrassing themselves. He examined first the remnants of my necklace, then the sapphire on Stella's chain. "This one," he said, touching the broken clasp, "is from the master batch. Certification confirmed." "This one," he said, pointing at Stella, "is a secondary commission that was not cleared for signature serial. It is expertly cut. It is not from the master batch." There was no satisfaction in the room, only the careful relief of watchers who had been spared the awkwardness of picking a side too soon. Stella tried to look small. Nathan tried to look older than his age and failed. The event manager nodded once. "Thank you, Mr. Harrow," then slid the broken clasp into the velvet tray and handed it to his aide. "Repair it, deliver before noon." Then he looked at me, not at Stella, not at the floor, not at the whispering rows of lace and tuxedo. He offered a hand like he was asking me to choose the weather. "Shall we?" he said, and for a moment everything else in the ballroom lost color. I put my fingers in his. He drew me toward the center, toward the small riser where the orchestra took breaks, and the family offered toasts. The music softened on cue. Someone dimmed the chandeliers by a fraction. The host stepped forward with the microphone, blinked when Ben lifted a palm, and stepped back again. Ben faced the crowd. "Thank you for celebrating Nathan tonight," he said. He kept it mercifully short. Nathan, who looked grateful for any handhold, produced a grin and a careless bow that said, "Yes, please look at me, but only for a minute." Before the orchestra could swell again, Ben went on. "There is one more matter. It will take exactly 40 seconds. He glanced at me. "Celine Hendry has been my partner in everything that matters." He did not need the rest. The ring was a soft circle, colder than the room, and the silence as it appeared was warmer than applause. "We intend to be married in due course. Date to be announced by my mother, who has always liked stealing my thunder." Laughter rippled at that genuine sound people make when an Ice King remembers he has family. Across the floor, Mrs. Prescott dabbed her eyes with a handkerchief and nodded in a way that meant she had already envisioned the floral palette. At the edge of the circle, I saw Mr. and Mrs. Vance go rigid like marble figures who had just discovered the sculptor had left a crack. Ethan actually swayed. The orchestra found a bright key and searched into a waltz. Ben lowered his head. "Breathe," he murmured. Then, before anyone could crowd us, he guided me down the steps and into the side corridor where staff staged trays. The air smelled faintly of champagne, sugar, and cold metal. "For the record," he said, "I was going to keep it to the 40 seconds. And then I saw you take a hit to your property in front of my guests." I was not in the mood for subtle. "You never are," I said. I tucked my hand inside his jacket and pressed 2 fingertips against his pulse. It slowed under my touch. His gaze sharpened. "How bad were they?" "Funny. They brought a whip." His face iced over. He did not raise his voice. "Names," I told him. He did not write them down. He never had to. Then I told him the part he would dislike more than a weapon. If I had to guess, they were about to ask Nathan for something significant. At midnight, sponsorship, a pipeline, a guarantee, possibly a line of credit disguised as a joint venture. They had a whole act ready to go. Stella was the opening number. Ben considered this for exactly 2 seconds, the time it takes to break a favor chain if you pull the right link. "Do you want me to cut their options tonight or let them hang themselves tomorrow?" "Tomorrow?" I said. "I want them to ask for it where a camera can hear." He nodded once. It was not agreement so much as permission. "I will send counsel. I will send security. You will not be alone with them." I smiled. I rarely am. He almost smiled back. Then he straightened, brushed the thumb over the fabric at my shoulder, as if dusting away the whole Vance household, and returned to the floor to be congratulated by people who owed him money. I stood in the shadow of a gilded sconce and watched the room adjust to its new geometry. People who had been lined up along one axis subtly rotated. The orbit around Stella collapsed. She stood alone, then lurched to Nathan, who patted her shoulder with the shame-faced gentleness of a man talking to a stray he had fed once. The Vances retreated to the edge of the room and began to confer with that particular intensity families develop when they discover blood really is thicker than water and also more expensive. I left before the cake. On the drive back to the Hendry estate, the city was a wash of winter light and black glass, and my phone would not stop buzzing. "Congratulations, strategic." I knew it. The one that mattered was short and quieter than the rest. From Mrs. Hendry, "Be where you are loved, darling. The doors are open." In the morning, the photos had already multiplied. Anonymous captions: "Ice King melts. Sister-in-law slap hurt." 2 gossip pages sent me requests for comments. I ignored them and sent one text to Ben. "Please forward council names." Then I texted another person, the orphanage director, who had put a mitten on my hand when I was 3, and sent me away with a stuffed bear missing one eye and a prayer. I asked for the ledger from that year. She said she would look. Council met me at the gate at 11, along with a quiet woman with a neutral face and a body camera hidden under a silk scarf. Not for the police, but for the better documentation. We drove to the Vance's house at noon, because that is the hour when people who believe they have power expect others to be impressed by their calendars. The butler opened the door and flinched when he saw me. Good, I thought. Fear teaches faster than a whip. Mr. and Mrs. Vance were waiting in a sitting room done in a tasteful gray that made everyone look a little ill. Ethan stood with his arms folded and his jaw jutting in a way that adolescents mistake for manhood. Stella sat on the sofa with a white bandage on her forehead and a teacup she did not drink from. Mrs. Vance tried first. "Celine about last night?" I did not sit. "You can apologize. Then we decide if it matters." She blinked. Mr. Vance recovered faster. We were embarrassed by the scene. You must understand that a father will protect his daughter when she is accused in public. She accused herself on camera. I tilted my head toward the woman with the scarf, who was already scanning the room for angles, already noting which half-hidden corners held nanny cams. We brought the footage from the bedroom as a courtesy. I also brought a medical waiver in case you wish to have the emergency room report show that the wound is superficial and consistent with a requested strike. Ethan made a choking sound. "You hit her with a glass. She asked me to punish her. I obliged." The Vances flinched at my tone. "You wanted melodrama. I delivered a single episode. I am not available for a season. Mr. Vance's mouth thinned. Enough. We invited you today to discuss the future. He looked down at a folder on the table, as if a signature might leap onto the paper if he stared hard enough. The Prescotts are prepared to sponsor a development fund in our daughter's name. He said it like a man who had trained himself to say such things even when they were untrue, because sometimes by saying it, made it true enough. The arrangement will open doors for our family and by extension for you. If you wish to be included, you will respect our guidance. That includes keeping your relationship with Ben discreet for the time being. We do not control Nathan, but he listens. He glanced at Stella, who stared at the untouched tea as if it might answer a question for her. I let the silence stretch until it curled back on itself. Then I set my own folder on the table and slid a single page across to him. He read the first line and went very still. You purchased the debt. All of it, I said. The mortgage on this house, the equipment loan on the band's material satellite plant, the personal line you did not mention to your wife, and the collateralized donation you took from a charity fund in exchange for naming rights at your club. He lifted his head sharply. Yes, that one too. The stewardship committee will be very interested in the conversion rate you promised and did not deliver. My lawyer cleared her throat in a small way that meant, please do not say bribery out loud yet. Mrs. Vance looked from his face to mine and back again, color fading like a photograph in sunlight. Ethan took a half step toward me, this flexing, the kind of stupid reflex that ends with broken fingers. Security, who had been a breath at my shoulder and nothing more, materialized between us without drawing a weapon or even a breath. Violence, the movement said, will not help you anymore. Terms, Mr. Vance said. His voice had lost the ring of silver. Iron showed now. He could still be useful if he learned. Simple, I said. First, a written apology for the assault attempt in the bedroom, signed by you and witnessed by counsel, along with a non-disclosure that protects my privacy and bars your family from trading on my name. Second, an admission that the invitation was destroyed by Stella, not me. Third, the public statement you were so eager to make about your daughter's future. You will adjust it to reflect reality. Stella is not Nathan's fiancée. She is not a Prescott by association. She is a young woman who will be taking a sabbatical from public appearances while she pursues an honest education. You will fund that education with money that does not come from loans, guarantees, or mortgaging your long-term survival. Stella's eyes flared. You cannot control my life. I looked at her bandage until she shifted. You would be amazed what a person can control when she stops asking permission. Mr. Vance's composure frayed. And if we refuse? My lawyer set a second page on the table. Notice of default, she said. It was not dramatic. It did not have to be. Sheriff sale, accelerated interest, cross-collateralization. We give you 7 days to sign the apology and the statement, and 60 days to restructure. We will not take your house if you keep your word. If you do not, a trustee will. She folded her hands. We prefer cooperation. It is cheaper, Mrs. Vance broke then. You are our daughter, she said. The words came out strangled, as if they had been stored in a drawer and had to be forced open. The orphanage sent you to us. We wanted to meet you. We wanted to help you. You wanted what I could bring you. I said, you wanted a charm. You had one already. It cried on command. I am not the accessory you ordered and did not pay for. She closed her eyes. When she opened them, something like the woman she might have been looked back at me. What do you want from us? A very short list, I said. Leave the Hendries alone. Leave the Prescotts alone. Stop telling people stories that are not true. Stop setting your children on fire to keep your rooms warm. Ethan's mouth twisted. You think you can talk to us like that because you have money? No, I said. I talked to you like that because you tried to use me, and then you tried to hurt me when I did not play your part. The money just means you will listen. He took one step, then another. Security did not move this time. I did not either. He stopped within arm's reach and stared like a dog at a fence it could not climb. The moment stretched, then he spat his words like he was throwing pebbles. You are not a Vance. Correct, I said. Say it again. Say it until you learn it. He jerked back as if he had touched an outlet. He looked at his parents, searching for a script that had not been written. I turned to Stella. Last night, you said you feared being abandoned. Here is your good news. No one is abandoning you. No one is throwing you out. No one is cutting you off from food or shelter or safety. But I am cutting off your theater. You can study. You can work. You can stop borrowing faces you think are more beautiful than your own. If you try again to use mine, I will bill you full retail. A sound escaped her, tiny and raw. Something honest at last. I could have liked her if she had learned how not to lie to herself. I signed the notice and slid it back toward my lawyer. She packed her folder and stood. "We will send the documents by courier," she said. 7 days. On the way to the door, the butler hovered by the wall like a stain. I paused. When a man with a whip loses his nerve, he should find another job. There is an opening at the Prescott Museum warehouse. Inventory, climate control. No uniforms with emphasis. If you want it, tell the manager Celine sent you. He nodded, too stunned to thank me, which was better than grinning. Outside, the winter sun cut clean lines over the driveway. My phone buzzed. A message from the orphanage director. Found a box, ledger pages from that year, also a sealed envelope marked H for Henry, perhaps, or for something else. The director wrote a second line. It looks like a donor note. Anonymous. Do you want me to open it? Not yet, I typed. I will come, Ben called as the car pulled away. How did our friends take the morning medicine? They swallowed. I said, it may disagree with them later. I heard his breath soften. Good. Board meets at 3. If you want to attend, the chair would like to congratulate you in person for stabilizing a vendor who did not know it needed stabilizing. Send a car, I said, and he laughed under his breath, which meant he was already doing it. The orphanage sat on a block that had not changed as much as the rest of the city. The paint was newer. The swing set was sturdier. The echo in the front hall was the same. The director hugged me like a woman who had carried toddlers on her hip, long enough to understand that luck is work in a different dress. She brought the box to a table by the window and lifted the lid. Ledger first, she said. Weekly list of adoptions and placements, receipts from donors, notes from the caseworkers. We scanned some but not all. This envelope was tucked under the cardboard. It has your intake number on the flap. I held the paper between my fingers. The flap was unbroken. The handwriting was neat in the old school way that nuns and bankers still teach. I broke the seal and slid out a single sheet with 3 lines in the same hand. For the child who will be chosen, your name will matter later. Keep it. When a man comes to claim you with money, know that another man sent you away with love. There was no signature. There was a faint imprint at the bottom right corner from a signet ring. The impression was not clear enough to read, but it was distinct enough to trace if a person knew where to look. I traced it with my thumb until the outline lived under my skin. The director waited. Some people would have asked. She did not. She only pointed at a second scrap of paper in the bottom of the box. It was a receipt stub, yellow with age, listing a donation made the week I was taken to the Hendries. The donor was anonymous. The amount was large enough to keep the nursery heated through a winter. The bank that processed it was not the Hendry Bank. It was the Prescott Bank. A chord I had not known was strung inside me hummed. Ben would not have been old enough to write a check. His father would have been, or his mother, or someone who understood that I would need both money and a story to survive a transfer that small children are not supposed to remember, but always do. I put the envelope back in the box and closed the lid. The director smiled at me in the old way again. Take your time. The board meeting was all glass and speed and men who measured outcomes in basis points. Ben sat at the head, quiet and exact. He did not announce me. He did not need to. I took a chair at the side, folded my hands, and listened as a portfolio manager used 3 charts to argue that patience was a form of profit. In the margin of my mind, the envelope's 3 lines wrote themselves again and again. When the meeting broke, the chair shook my hand with the weight of a man who had learned to respect a woman without having to say he had learned it. I thanked him and excused myself before the congratulations turned sticky. In the corridor, Nathan leaned against the wall like a penitent who had made it as far as the vestibule. He looked up when he heard my steps. "I'm sorry," he said. "Last night. The necklace, the noise, all of it." "You should be sorry to yourself first," I said. "If you want to be a man, stop borrowing trouble from jewelers who flatter you. Stop picking girls who need to be watched. Stop pretending that your brother's shadow is a cold place. It is not. It is a shelter while you grow up. He nodded, startled, and for the first time I saw what he might be if he survived his charms. He hesitated. There is something you should know about Stella. She was not the only one they were preparing. He cleared his throat. There is a folder in the Vance house safe with a list of families labeled targets. My last name is on it. Yours is on it too. I saw it when Mr. Vance left the safe open to count cash. I was not supposed to see it. I considered the shape of that and was not surprised. Thank you, I said. He almost smiled. Do not tell Ben I said that. He will dock my allowance. You do not have an allowance. That is exactly what he would say. I left him laughing at himself and crossed the lobby where a courier in a gray jacket was waiting with a small package and a heavier set of papers. The package was from the jeweler. Repaired, the card said in tidy script. Improved clasp. The papers were the signed apologies delivered sooner than expected. Fear can make a pen move quicker than pride. By the time the sun slid to the edge of the skyline, the city had rearranged itself again. News sites had their new angles. Social pages had their new captions. The Vances had their new limits. I stood at a tall window in Ben's office, looking at a reflection of myself overlaid on the steel that had taught me to speak in the language of power. My phone buzzed once more, an unknown number. I answered. The voice on the other end was male, older, steady as a line drawn with a ruler. You opened the envelope, he said. My spine went cold in a way that was not fear. Not exactly. Who is this? A pause, a faint smile I could not see but heard. The man who sent you away with love. It is time you learned your name. The voice on the line was steady, older, the kind of voice that has practiced carrying hard truths across thin wires. You opened the envelope, he said. You have questions? I can answer them if you are willing to meet. I did not say yes. I said location and time. He named a place that made my mouth twist. The conservatory on the river with the glass roof and fruit trees older than most dynasties. Noon, he said. Come alone if you wish, but bring eyes you trust. Then he ended the call before I could test his patience. I told Ben in 3 sentences. Anonymous caller claims authorship of the note wants to meet Noon Conservatory. He sent back a single word, eyes. That meant a pair of quiet professionals would melt into the hedges and the eaves, while I kept my hands visible and my temper inside my coat. The conservatory was all wet light and green silence. He was waiting on a bench that smelled like lemon oil. A man built of careful posture and a face taught by old schools to reveal nothing except courtesy. On his right hand, the signet ring I had felt with my thumb pressed a small empire into the air. I sat without asking permission. He inclined his head as if I had done something elegant. You are as I hoped, he said, direct, impatient with ceremony. Good. We do not have time for embroidery. He folded his hands on a cane he did not appear to need. My name is Adrian Morrow. I knew your mother. I do not claim to be anything to you beyond a man who failed her once and has been trying to keep a promise ever since. The shape of my chest changed. It is astonishing how a body can prepare for danger with steel and for grief with nothing. I told him to continue. You were born under the Henry name, he said, each word unadorned. Your mother was a Hendry cousin, orphan young, raised by an aunt who loved her as if love could stop storms. When she fell in love with a man who turned out to be both charming and a coward, the aunt did not forbid it. She only warned he was not a Vance. He was a broker with friends who liked their deals in the dark. When your mother was pregnant, those friends began to take interest in collateral. A child in a rich cradle looks like collateral to men who have never been loved properly. He paused to let that settle. The aunt called me. He said, I dealt with the sort of men who keep files on debt and heirs. We moved your mother quietly to a safe place. She carried you to term. She named you in a hospital that is now a private school. Then she died within a week. Infection. The old kind that should not kill anymore, and sometimes still does. The aunt held you and held on to her last judgment. She decided that the only way to keep you from becoming a bargaining chip was to remove you from the board entirely. The Hendries were not in a position to take you openly. Then there were politics. I arranged a donation to the orphanage to improve outcomes for several children. One of those outcomes was you. The room breathed plants and a fountain. He watched my face like a surgeon watches a monitor. I thought of the anonymous bank receipt. I thought of the line in the note. Keep your name. You were chosen again at 3, he said. That made things easier. The Henrys had stepped into a more public season and could adopt without drawing the wrong kind of scrutiny. I kept my distance so that the men who had sniffed around your cradle would not sniff again. When you surfaced last week with a family who claimed you as theirs by blood and noise, I recognized the pattern of greed. I sent the envelope to the director long ago with instructions that it was to be delivered if a man arrived with money and a story about blood. She must have added it to the ledger box and forgotten. Her forgetting saved it. Your opening it brought me here. The king clicked once on the tile as he adjusted his hands. I do not ask you for anything, he said. I offer you 3 things. First, proof of your mother's name and of your birth. He slid a slim portfolio across the bench without touching my fingers. Second, a copy of a very old ledger from a private banking house that shows the man who troubled your mother transferring money to your self-styled father in the week of your birth. Third, a favor that costs me nothing and you very little. Meet the aunt who loved you and let go. She is in no condition for long explanations. She would like to see that the choice she made did not break your spirit. If you will not go, I will not tell her. She will not know that you refused. All the versions of myself arranged themselves behind my eyes and looked at one another. The one who had smashed a glass over a liar's head, the one who had laughed at foolish men, the one who had pressed her fingers to a pulse and felt it slow, the one who remembered the mitten, and the one I'd bear. I told him to set the time and place. He let out a breath so quietly I might have imagined it this afternoon. He said, I can arrange a car, but I suspect you have better cars. He rose like an old tree bends. One more thing. The man who used your mother's fear is not in play. He vanished into a country where men like him learned to change names. There is a file if you ever want to read it. Do not waste your life chasing a ghost that is already broken. Better to feed the living. I stepped into the winter light and found the shadow that was security peel itself from a fern. We have it, one of them said. The ring matches the crest. The bank paper is authentic. The ledger is older than most pretense. The aunt is in a quiet house near the museum. She has a nurse who insists on tea at 4. Before 4, there was the matter of the Vances and their appetite. Nathan texted me an address followed by a picture of a menu he could not afford and a caption that said, Do I have to sit through this appetizer course? There are 7. I told him to eat the bread and keep his phone face down. Across town, a private room inside a glossy restaurant held 3 men with matching cufflinks, Mr. and Mrs. Vance with their worked expressions, and Stella in a pale dress with a bandage like a pale ribbon. The 7th chair was reserved for a Prescott. The 8th was mine. I entered on time with counsel, and the woman in the silk scarf whose camera never blinked. Mr. Vance stood as if he were doing me a courtesy. Mrs. Vance lifted her chin like a woman who has remembered how to pretend. Stella looked at me and then at the table and folded her hands in her lap. Mr. Vance started the pitch before the water glasses stopped sweating. The development fund in his daughter's name had already raised soft commitments. The Prescott imprimatur would convert those commitments into hard capital. Nathan shifted in his chair and remembered my earlier instructions. Do not nod. Do not speak first. Do not sign anything that uses your name and the word guarantee in the same sentence. The men with the cufflinks offered a brochure printed on paper thick enough to shingle a house. It contained smiling children and an outline of a pipeline that began with charity and ended with leverage. I let him talk for 6 minutes while the camera gathered the shape of his ambitions. Then I set my own folder on the linen. I will simplify, I said. Your invitations to this table included the following claims: that my engagement is a rumor, that your daughter is privately engaged to Nathan, that a Prescott will provide a backstop for an instrument you cannot carry. All 3 claims are false. Also false is the assertion that I am your biological child. I slid the ledger copy across the table, and then the adoption extract, and then the donation receipt. The man with the cufflinks who had taken the chair opposite me did not reach for the papers. He watched my eyes and then glanced at the camera in the silk scarf, and then folded his hands on the table like a man concluding a mass. Mr. Vance did not drop the performance at once. He insisted. Blood does not need paper. Blood recognizes itself. The line would have worked on softer people. I placed the last document between us like a new kind of centerpiece. It was not dramatic. It was a photocopy of the safe ledger Nathan had told me about, the page with the word targets written at the top in a hand that had mistaken cunning for intelligence. The list included the Prescott name, the Henry name, 2 other families who would be relieved to learn they were not paranoid, and a flimsier column labeled collateral that included assets Mr. Vance had no right to offer and no way to value. The men with the cufflinks inhaled through their teeth as if a cold draft had slipped them into the door. "You are making enemies you cannot afford," Mr. Vance said as his eyes met mine. He was wrong. I tapped the folder once. "Your enemies were already here. They dressed as friends and brought you a brochure." I turned my head slightly. The woman in the scarf did not change expression. Counsel did not either. Nathan reached for a bread roll and then set his hand in his lap like a student in a class he had decided to pass. Stella spoke then. Her voice was a threat in a storm. "Father," she said, "please stop. It is over." Her hands were shaking, but she did not hide them. She did the one brave thing she had been avoiding since she learned to cry on command. She told the truth while someone else still had time to pretend. "Nathan is not my fiancé. He was never going to be. He has been kind, that is all. I borrowed his kindness and sold it to you as a ticket. It was wrong. I am sorry. I will return everything that was given to me and everything that was bought in the expectation of something I could not give." She looked at me then and refused to lower her gaze. "I am sorry for lying to you," she said. "I am sorry for taking your moment and breaking your necklace and turning your name into my mirror. I do not ask for forgiveness. I ask for a quieter life." Silence can be the loudest thing in a room. It rang against the glasses until the men with the cufflinks stood up almost as one. One of them left his card and a small speech about compliance and KYC in the comfort of verifiable facts. They left without finishing the second course. Mr. Vance sagged in a way that showed the steel rods he had installed in place of a spine were starting to rust. Mrs. Vance pressed fingers to her temple and closed her eyes like a woman remembering her mother and not enjoying the memory. Ethan, who had come late and taken a seat by the door as if guarding it, stood and then sat and then stood again, unable to decide whether to fight a battle that had already ended. I set terms again, simple as a shopping list. You will sign the apology you drafted and then tried to amend. You will post the truth about the invitation and the false engagement where you have been posting envy. You will withdraw your application to sponsor anything under a name you do not own. You will accept the restructure under the trustee, and you will keep your house only if you keep your word. You will send your daughter to school without turning her into a currency. If you try to trade her again, I will trade your last pretense for cash and have it sent to the orphanage. This is not a threat. It is a budget. Mr. Vance looked for anger in my face and found boredom. He signed. He did not look at his wife when he handed her the pen. She signed slowly as if each letter cost. Stella did not sign anything. She did not need to. She reached for the bandage on her forehead as if it itched, and then let her hand fall. "Thank you for not making me smaller," she said. "The funny thing about telling the truth is that it increases the size of the room around you." I left while Nathan was still discovering that eating the bread had been the right choice. Outside, the air was bright and clean as a sheet on a cold line. The car took me to the quiet house near the museum, where the aunt waited with the nurse who insisted on tea at 4. She was not the storybook kind, not rosy and round with a lap full of knitting. She was a woman whose bones had decided to be honest after years of pretending they did not ache. Her hair was thin and silver. Her eyes were clear and so full of apology that I felt the urge to take her hand first so she could stop rehearsing. She looked at me like a woman watches a child cross a busy street and not get hit. "I loved your mother more than I knew how to say," she began without preface, "and I let her go to a man I should not have trusted because I wanted her to taste happiness and mistook that taste for proof of a feast. When she died, I decided I would not let them take you into a house where men trade names. I'm sorry for the part of your story that is missing, because I took it away. If there is anything you want from me, I will try to give it. If there is nothing you want from me, I will try to accept it." I told her the written story. She cried. Then finally, the quiet tears of a person who has been holding a door shut in her chest for so long, she forgot where the handle was. We sat in the light and drank tea that tasted like old gardens. She gave me a small locket with a curl of hair that had been kept too long and somehow not turned to dust. On the back, a name had been scratched badly but legibly by a young hand trying to make something permanent. Celine, keep it. I put the locket in my palm and felt 12 kinds of courage line up. When I left, the nurse pressed a packet of cookies into my hand as if I'd not eaten since I was 3. The city had softened around the edges by the time I reached the Hendry estate. Mrs. Hendry met me at the door and gathered me in the kind of embrace that feels engineered for impact. We did not say much. We did not have to. Family can be either the people who taught you who you are, or the people who learned who you are and decided to stay. If you are lucky, sometimes it is both. The week unraveled quickly after that. Papers posted, apologies filed. The trustee proved to be a woman with a stare sharp enough to cut up a credit card from across the room. She made fluency out of numbers and would not let the Vances pirate a single comma. Ethan attempted a last stand on social media and deleted it when the first question he could not answer came from someone who had known him in high school and remembered his senior prank had been stealing credit for another boy's work. The butler took the warehouse job and discovered that he liked counting paintings more than counting sins. He sent a short note that said, "Thank you," without using the words. Stella appeared at my gate one morning with a paper bag and 2 textbooks. She did not ask to come in. She placed the bag in my hand and said, "This is from a bakery where I stood for 40 minutes. I did not cut in line. And this is my schedule. I'm taking accounting and a writing class because I think it will be easier to tell the truth if I practice. If you never want to see me again, I will not come back. If you allow it, I will send you a grade report at the end of the term and then leave you alone." I told her to send the report and not the bread next time. Then I added one more instruction. No crying is currency, tears only for weather. She nodded and did not cry, then watched all of it the way we watch markets for inflection points rather than headlines. He moved around me like a man with a blueprint and the time to follow it line by line. The repaired necklace arrived with an improved clasp as promised. He fastened it at my throat and said nothing because there was nothing smart enough to say. He set the wedding planning in his mother's capable hands and refused to let the date be used as a bartering chip by anyone outside the family. When gossip writers tried to bait him with questions about the slap that had become a city joke, he replied that a slandered woman owed the room's silence only if the room had earned it. On a cold morning, bright enough to make the sky look scrubbed, I went back to the orphanage with a proposal that made the director sit down hard. "Endowment," I said, "named for people who do not care if their names are on plaques." She laughed through her hand and said she knew a few of those and would make sure the heating bills never threatened a child again. We stood by the swing set and watched 2 kids decide who would be brave enough to jump first. They both were. The file Adrian mentioned waited on my desk for 2 days. On the 3rd, I read it. The men who had haunted my mother's brief happiness had gone on to haunt other rooms until time and gravity did their unpaid work. I closed the folder and sent it to a cabinet with a lock. I did not chase anyone. I had living people to feed. Nathan sent me a photo of himself standing in front of a classroom where he was giving a talk about not making the same kind of purchase twice when it had already cost you your pride. He looked 5 years older and 2 inches taller. "Good boy," I texted. He replied with a line that sounded like my advice about shelters disguised as shadows. When the day came to formalize a future, it was not a spectacle meant to set the city on fire. It was a garden with chairs and a crowd that knew what to do with their hands. Mrs. Prescott wore navy in victory. Mrs. Hendry wore a color that made her eyes brighter, and her thank God look quieter. Adrian Morrow took a seat in the 2nd row and stood when I walked past him, not because anyone told him to, but because some promises are kept standing. The aunt sent a small spray of white flowers and a card that said, "Be where you are loved." The locket lay against my skin, light as a thought. Ben took my hands like a decision he had made a long time ago, and was happy to keep making. The words were old and good. The ring was a circle that knew how to do its job. When the music began, we did not steal anyone's thunder. We invited it to sit with us. There are stories that end with a door slamming and others that end with footsteps running down a hall. This one ended with something quieter. A house where the rooms held the right names and no one had to rehearse their affection. A woman who wore her own face and did not apologize for its angles. A man who knew that power was not a voice raised, but a promise kept. A girl who stopped crying when she learned that the truth makes less noise but takes up more space. A boy who learned to be a man without burning anyone for warmth. An orphanage where the heat stayed on. A ledger with a new line item called joy that no one tried to monetize. On some mornings, I still wake to the echo of a nails on chalkboard and remember a girl I wanted to slap into honesty and instead offered a timetable. On some nights, I hold the locket and think of a young woman who tried to build a feast out of a taste and died too soon, and an aunt who pushed a child away from the edge because she could not build a fence high enough. The note stays in a drawer where I can find it without looking. For the child who will be chosen, your name will matter later. Keep it. When a man comes to claim you with money, know that another man sent you away with love. There are many ways to be sent away. There are fewer to be sent away with love. I chose to be a woman who sends and receives both without regret. If you are lucky, people call you lucky. If you are wise, you stop waiting for luck to do the heavy lifting. I was born lucky. Yes. But luck without a spine becomes an ornament in somebody else's hall. I chose to be the spine. I chose the hall. I chose the people who could walk through it without tripping over their own mirrors. I kept my name. I made it bigger. And when people whispered that I was fearless, I did not correct them. I told them the truth in a voice that needed no whip and no camera. I am loved. I am chosen. I am not for sale.